Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're unlocking an absolute survival toolkit for emotional intelligence. We're talking about how to navigate those high-stakes disagreements without, completely losing your cool. I mean, have you ever walked away from a super tense discussion just wishing you had handled it completely differently? Well, you're definitely not alone. In this Explainer, we're going to learn exactly how to transform our communication during those critical moments where it matters the most. So let's dive right in. I want to hook you right off the bat with a truly jarring statistic. 195,000. According to a landmark study called Silence Kills, that is the number of preventable deaths in hospitals every single year, just due to medical errors. It's a completely staggering number. But what actually causes it? Well, the root cause is beautifully and tragically summed up right here. People's inability to confront risky topics allowed risks to go unaddressed. Whether we're looking at the tragic loss of the NASA Columbia Space Shuttle or medical errors in top-tier hospitals, the core issue is almost always the exact same thing. Highly intelligent, incredibly dedicated people completely avoiding difficult, high-stakes conversations. They see mistakes, they see corners being cut, or they recognize incompetence, but they just stay silent. And that inability to confront risky topics, that's what allows those risks to snowball into full-blown catastrophes. But there is an antidote to this deadly silence, and it's found in the core concepts of the bestseller Crucial Conversations. We are going to unpack the ultimate toolkit to help you stop avoiding the issues that really matter, stop reacting poorly under pressure, and totally transform the way we communicate, both at work and at home. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover spotting a crucial conversation, working on yourself first, making the conversation safe, sharing and exploring paths, and finally, moving to meaningful action. All right, Section 1, spotting a crucial conversation, knowing exactly what to do when stakes are high. So, before we can fix our communication, we really have to recognize when a normal, everyday chat is turning into a critical moment. And the key here is understanding 3 specific ingredients. You see, a crucial conversation isn't just a regular argument. It happens when the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions are running strong. This could literally be a high-level boardroom negotiation, giving some really tough negative feedback to a colleague, or even just a heated dispute with your spouse or your kids. And here's the kicker. When these 3 elements converge, human beings tend to perform at their absolute worst. Now, you might be wondering, why do we perform so badly in these moments? Honestly, it's just our biology. When we feel threatened, we completely default to fight or flight mode, which in communication translates to silence or violence. Silence is flight, right? We mask our feelings, we avoid the topic entirely, or we just physically withdraw. Violence, on the other hand, is fight. Verbal violence, not physical. We try to control the conversation, we label people, or we attack their ideas. Both of these reactions instantly destroy trust and teamwork, and they completely derail your personal growth and leadership potential. So think about your own default reactions for a second. What's your fatal flaw? Under pressure, do you retreat or do you attack? Section 2, work on yourself first. Change your approach. You see, you can't force the other person to change, but you do have total control over yourself. To get in the right headspace, you have to ask yourself this ultimate focusing question. What do I really want? Let me share a quick story from the source material about Carolyn. She was a CEO pushing her company to cut costs. Well, during a really tense all-hands meeting, a manager bravely stood up and pointed out a massive hypocrisy. While Carolyn was asking everyone to print double-sided just to save pennies, she was simultaneously building herself a $150,000 new office. Yikes! The whole room just froze. Carolyn's face turned completely red. Now, she could have reacted with verbal violence to defend herself. But instead, she paused. She asked herself, what do I really want? And she realized her goal wasn't to save face or put this manager in his place. Her goal was to build trust and encourage cost-cutting. So she openly admitted she hadn't reviewed the office costs, she thanked him for his candor, and committed to slashing her own office budget right then and there. She started with her heart. By focusing on what she actually wanted, Carolyn completely avoided what the authors call the sucker's choice. This is that false either-or dichotomy we invent just to justify our bad behavior. You know what I mean? We tell ourselves, well, I either have to tell the brutal truth and make an enemy, or I keep quiet and keep a friend. Masters of dialogue totally refuse this sucker's choice. Instead, they ask, how can I be 100% honest and maintain respect in this relationship at the same time? Moving right along to Section 3, making the conversation safe. prevent defensiveness. Once your own motives are in check, you've got to look outward. If people don't feel psychological safety, they're going to instantly revert back to silence or violence. Here's the secret. People actually don't get defensive because of what you're saying. They get defensive because of why they think you're saying it. They misinterpret your intent. So to keep them in dialogue, you absolutely must establish two conditions of safety: mutual purpose and mutual respect. Basically, they need to know that you actually care about their goals and that you respect them as a human being. If they truly believe your intent is pure, they can hear almost any feedback you throw their way. A super practical tool for building this safety is the contrast principle. This is literally a mid-conversation lifesaver. When you see safety breaking down and someone's getting defensive, you just step out of the content of the argument and use a don't/do statement to fix the misunderstanding. For example, if a coworker thinks you're just pointing fingers at them, you pause and say, hey, I don't want to blame anyone for what happened. What I do want is to figure out how we can identify these challenges earlier next time. Boom. That instantly clarifies your intent and rebuilds the safety in the room. Section 4. Sharing and exploring paths. Sharing tough messages. Okay, so with safety established, how do you actually share hard truths without sounding totally abrasive? You use the STATE framework. First up, share the facts. Facts are irrefutable and way less emotional. Second, tell your story. This is the meaning or interpretation you're personally deriving from those facts. Third, ask for their path, genuinely inviting them to share their perspective. Fourth, talk tentatively, meaning present your story as a hypothesis, not some absolute, undeniable truth. And finally, encourage testing, which means you actively invite opposing views to see if your story holds up. Now, the absolute most critical part of this STATE framework is separating facts from your story. Take a look at this example. She walked away during the meeting. That is an indisputable fact. A security camera could record it. But she scowled at me and acted like a jerk? That is a story. It's a personal interpretation heavily laden with emotion. Whenever we confuse our emotionally charged victim or villain stories with the actual facts, we instantly derail the dialogue. Always start with clean facts first. Once you've shared your path, you have to explore theirs, especially if they're shutting down or getting aggressive. You can draw them out using the AMPP listening framework. First, ask them directly to share their opinion. Then, mirror their emotions by pointing out what you're observing, like, hey, you say you're okay, but you look pretty frustrated. Next, paraphrase their words back to them just to acknowledge that you really hear them. And if they are still stuck, prime the pump. Offer a best guess at what they might be thinking, just to get the conversational juices flowing. I'm telling you, this works brilliantly, whether you're managing a defensive employee or just trying to connect with a really stubborn teenager. Section 5, moving to meaningful action, ensuring accountability. Because here's the thing, great dialogue is completely useless if it doesn't lead to actual results. The huge trap that so many teams fall into is assuming that just because they talked about something, a decision was automatically made. Not true. You have to explicitly agree on how you're going to decide. There are 4 main methods. Command, where one person decides. Consult, where one person decides but only after gathering input. Vote, where majority rules. And consensus, where everyone has to agree. Choose your method wisely. And definitely remember this golden rule. If everyone is responsible for an action, absolutely nobody is. You've got to tie every single action to a specific person and a firm deadline. Wow, we have covered some incredible ground today. From spotting when a conversation actually turns crucial, to mastering our own internal stories, creating that essential psychological safety, and applying powerhouse frameworks like STATE and AMP. So I want to leave you with one final, kind of provocative thought. Think of the one high-stakes conversation you have been actively avoiding. Come on, you know the one I'm talking about. Now that you have this toolkit in your back pocket, how are you going to approach it tomorrow? It's time to step out of the silence, start with your heart, and make it safe. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.